Good morning, Digit fam. Adam Dowd here, finishing out the week with your latest dose of tech and geekery. And we've got another edition of Digit Intelligence for you, once again looking at the topic of drones. And I have to admit, I was saving up for a drone when that Oculus Quest came onto my radar. Let's just say it set me back a bit. But that's a different conversation. For now, it is August 9th, 2019, the 31-year anniversary of the first official night game at Wrigley Field, and this is your Digit Daily. It's always funny when two podcasts come out about the same thing. Last night, the Android Authority podcast spent about 10 minutes talking about Huawei's new operating system, but there are two key differences between that podcast and this one. First, that podcast was based on rumors since it was recorded last night, and the announcement hadn't come yet. Second, this podcast is coming out first, despite that the Android Authority podcast was recorded first. To quote Deadpool, "These timelines are so confusing." So early this morning in China, which translates to late last night in Chicago, Huawei announced Harmony OS, its potential Android replacement. But it didn't exactly frame it that way. It framed it as an operating system for everything, phones included. This OS can run on IoT, smart assistants, cars, TVs, and, oh, by the way, phones too. Huawei designed it as a cross-platform OS that can work on anything, though Huawei's CEO Richard Yu did point out that if they weren't able to use Android in the future, they could switch to Harmony, saying, quote, "It's not that difficult." We're calling this Huawei's Fool Me Twice plan because I'd imagine that the whole entity list thing was a bit of a wake-up call for Huawei, the second largest phone manufacturer in the world. Now, Harmony has been in production for a while. A new operating system isn't something you bang out over a couple of months binging on Red Bull and Cheetos. So the fact that Huawei adapted it for phones is not surprising at all. There was probably a little bit of scrambling over the past few months, but it's fairly certain that this has been on the drawing board for some time. The first platform that will run Harmony OS will be the Honor Vision TV set, which comes out tomorrow. As for phones, well, Huawei will keep this in its back pocket for now. But can it work? Others have tried to unseat Android and iOS. I could read you a list of dead third platforms that have all tried, but this is only a 7-minute podcast. The difference here is that Huawei may not have a choice, and it is possible that an OS like this could thrive in China where Google Play services aren't even all that relevant. But even China is a limited market in the global sense. But, speaking of moving around a global market, this week's Digit Intelligence sees the return of Jonathan Feist from Drone Rush with the 3 best portable drones you can buy today. Not surprisingly, they all have the same sticker on them.
Howdy folks, Jonathan Feist here from Drone Rush. More often than not, the best drone for you is the one that packs down and travels with you without causing grief. Many of the top camera drones out there are large beasts, requiring their own backpack for transport. But we've got a list of our favorite small form factor machines. Smaller drones that fold down to easily fit in your bag, or even in your pocket, without much compromise in their capabilities. In third spot, the DJI Spark was close to a tie with the unique Mantis Cube, but the stabilized camera on the Spark took the win. This tiny drone offers up about 16 minutes of flight time, shoots 1080p video, and can be controlled by remote, with your phone, or just with your hands. Practice those Jedi mind tricks for basic flight functions. Best of all, the DJI Spark is just around $300. Coming in at number 2, the DJI Mavic 2 Pro and the DJI Mavic 2 Zoom share a spot again. In terms of portability, they are the exact same machine, only the camera differs. The Pro offers a best-in-class Hasselblad camera sensor, while the Zoom has a 2x optical zoom. Both shoot 4K video. The DJI Mavic 2 line is compact, folds down for transport, and offers some of the best flight characteristics of any drone out there right now. Some of the longest flight times as well, at around 30 minutes. The starting price is around $1,249 for the Zoom, $1,499 for the Pro. And in number 1, more often than not, the DJI Mavic Air is the drone we recommend to most potential pilots. It is a compact drone, but then it folds down small enough to fit in a pocket. Its remote control was the first consumer product from DJI to offer removable joysticks as well, making for one of the most portable 4K camera drones you'll find. With 21 minutes of airtime at over 40 miles per hour and a new level of hand gesture controls, the DJI Mavic Air is an easy recommendation at around $700. As always, please remember that most countries around the globe have drone laws you must follow. In the United States, for example, you must register your drone before you fly, and there's airspace limitations which tell you where you can and cannot take off. For more info on these and many other drones, plus the laws and some helpful piloting tips, visit me over on dronerush.com. Thanks again, and fly safe.
This podcast not brought to you by DJI. Thank you very much, Mr. Feist, for all those awesome options. And speaking of things that are awesome, let's head into the Roundup! You know what's really embarrassing? Talking a lot of smack and then losing anyway. That's why I generally try to avoid talking smack during competitions. It's not because I'm gracious, it's because I don't want to look even worse if I lose. Enter Samsung, who made a career out of making fun of the iPhone because the iPhone had a notch, the iPhone didn't have a headphone jack, the iPhone didn't have expandable storage. And then Samsung made the Galaxy Note 10, which doesn't have a headphone jack or expandable storage, but does have a punch hole, which is a very, very small step up from a notch. So, yeah, Samsung pulled all of those old commercials from its YouTube channel, but not only did they look worse when they lost, but they looked even worser when trying to hide it. Sack up, Samsung. You lost. And yes, I know worser is not a word. And speaking of the Note, Chris Carlin, editor-in-chief at Android Authority, penned an op-ed about the Note and how and why it is still the pinnacle of Android, despite all the shortcomings we talked about in the last story. Chris suggests that Samsung adopting those features into the Note signifies that the industry as a whole is ready to move on, and while I mostly agree, Joe Hindy on the Android Authority podcast reminded me that once upon a time, Samsung removed expandable storage, I think it was on the Note 5, only to bring it back on subsequent generations. It's possible, though not all that likely, that Samsung could reverse course on some of these. False hope is still hope. And speaking of damn the torpedoes and full speed ahead, according to The Verge, Google reports that users prefer the ergonomics of 3-button navigation for back, home, and recent apps, but gestures allow more screen to be displayed, and that's what Apple is doing, so we're going to do it too. Even though our users really prefer the buttons, it's not what Apple is doing, so we're not going to do it either. Okay, I might have added some stuff in there. Yesterday, Google's search broke for about 12 hours or so. It's not like search wasn't really working, but new results weren't coming up due to a problem with URL indexing. I mean, it's not like if you searched for President of the United States, Barack Obama's photo came up. Unfortunately, but you likely weren't getting the latest and greatest results from the past 12 hours. And frankly, the part I find most fascinating about this story is the fact that it was first reported by the website Search Engine Land, and that means that there is a website out there called Search Engine Land, and that's just delightful. Facebook is serious about wanting to become a real news curator. That's right, it's not just for racist uncles anymore. Facebook wants to integrate a news tab into the social network I still don't use, and yes, I understand that Facebook owns the Oculus Quest, and I can assure you I looked long and hard at the HTC Vive Focus before settling on Oculus. Anyway, Facebook is reportedly offering multi-million-dollar deals to get news curators to include content on the news tab, and hey, Facebook! You interested in news podcasts? Just curious. Okay, fine, I'm cheap. And finally, a plant store in London called Patch has opened its first hotel for plants. This service will take care of your plants while you're on vacation. Basically, you bring them the plant and they'll water it for you. The service is free, interestingly enough, and it was open to, quote, give a helping hand to the increasing number of plant parents out there. And as a parent of 2 humans, I take major exception to that remark. You are a plant owner, not a plant parent. And furthermore, you are a dog owner, not a dog parent. And while we're at it, you are a cat's butler, not a cat parent or owner, because let's face it, we know who dominates whom in that relationship. So that's going to do it for today's Digit Daily. If you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes and subscribe to our daily newsletter on Digit.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, leave a review, and don't forget to tell your friends about DigitDailyPod.com. Once again, I'm Adam Dowd, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again on Monday.